Cool. I'm going to go to my YouTube and just make sure we're good. Now, what you'll see also, Steve, is the live chat. It'll come through right on your screen, so you can watch the live chat while we're talking.
Cool.
But I'll go through it, once we get a bunch of people in here, and once you get like maybe like 5 or 6 comments, then we'll go back through, and then we can read them all through. Juan's already in here. What's up, Juan?
How's it going?
I gotta fix this. This is a little cattywampus here. Maybe this way. Yeah, there it goes. There, that looks okay.
Just hang my banner back there like you got yours, but I don't know. My wife wouldn't like that too much in the house.
Yeah, putting holes in the drywall just to put up a Michigan State banner.
Yeah. Tony.
Hands and Tony, husband and wife.
Oh, nice.
They're here. What's up? What's up? Sonny Gay just
Sonny
said what up.
Sonny busted my arm up the other day.
Nice. Yeah.
Having practice right across the street from my office, so it was kind of hard not to go.
Awesome. That's sweet. That's very convenient.
Yeah.
Very convenient. Very convenient. Yeah, my practice is only like 10 minutes away from me.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah. Juan said missed me at the Bowling Green tournament. We had a function going on at the dealership today that I had to partake in, so couldn't make it up. And then I ended up going through there Tuesday and Thursday this week. I had to head up to Auburn Hills area for work.
Okay. Mike Ennis. Do you know Mike? Mike Ennis is in the chat. What's up, Mike?
Yep. How's it going, Mike?
I think we got quite a few people in. We're going to go ahead and get started.
Cool.
So, welcome everybody to East Ohio Arm Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Billy Collins. And on this week, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Steve Pettis. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining us, man. I really do. It's definitely a privilege having you on the podcast. I'm looking forward to getting your insights on some things. First thing I'd like to do, just welcome you. And if you would, maybe just tell us about yourself, Steve. Like, what's going on in your life, and where are you from, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So Steve Pettis, obviously, is my name, right? I currently live in Kentucky. I spent all my life in Michigan up until about 2016. We just chatted a little bit about that, right? I was up in Cadillac, Michigan, middle of a snowstorm in January. Got a phone call. Hey, what do you think about coming to Kentucky? My wife was tired of shoveling the driveway while I was out for work, so she was on board. We came down here, so that's kind of where I've been at as far as locations and stuff. I currently spend a lot of time on my Harley. Right, we go to Sturgis. I try to go every year, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year. We got a couple other things that are going on.
Oh, okay.
So we make a few trips. This year we're going to try to do up through the UP and back down into Milwaukee for the 120-year anniversary that they're doing this year.
Cool.
That should be a good trip, right? So the bad thing is during my wife's birthday, so I'm going to trailer the bike up and drop her off at the in-laws and let her go see the grandbaby.
Yeah, there you go.
So she could go see the grandbaby, and I get to go play.
Nice. How many grandkids you got?
Just the one right now. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Steve, what do you do for work?
I am a supplier quality manager for a tier one automotive supplier. So
Okay.
basically, I go to everybody that's making parts, or my team goes to everybody that's making parts for us. Uh, does audits on them, make sure that the parts and stuff, or if something catastrophic happens, like when you hear about the recalls and stuff in cars, like
Yeah.
our teams have been involved months and months before those recalls and stuff come out, right? So we're in trying to make sure that those things don't happen uh, with our supply base. So I've been a part of a couple recalls, and it's not necessarily always fun, right?
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah. So I've been,
Probably a pretty big headache.
yeah, yeah. My dad always told me not to get into the automotive world, but coming out of high school, it was like, well, what am I going to do now? Back in the 90s, right? So
Right.
I jumped in the automotive world, and this year's 30 years. I had a 30-year and out plan, but yeah, that didn't quite come together as planned.
Yeah. Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, like, go with the flow, right?
Yep. So
Um. So let's talk about arm wrestling. How did you get into arm wrestling, Steve? Like, where did it all start?
it was 1993, February 1993. I was sitting at a buddy's house. We were hanging out. A bunch of other buddies came over, said, "Hey, we're going out to this arm wrestling tournament at this place called TJ's Poorhouse in Gobles, Michigan." And it was a Friday night. I was like, "Yeah." I was always interested, right? I watched Over the Top. We had arm
Yeah.
wrestled at school and stuff, so I was always interested. But I was a buck 30 back then, soaking wet, right? And I was, yeah, I'll go watch you guys. No, it's all weight classes, blah blah blah, right? So we get out there. What the heck? It was like $5. I go ahead, jump in, and I won my first tournament. Inside, hook,
Wow.
just head down, bearing down,
Oh no.
just brutal matches, right? No real technique other than what they showed us that night as we were going out there and stuff, right?
Holy moly.
And was hooked, right? Just absolutely hooked. And that's before the internet.
Yeah.
There was nothing. So, you get one flyer at a tournament and you start making phone calls and you try to get on all the old mailing lists that everybody would send out, or you go to, once you finally got to the next tournament, you find that there's a table sitting there with flyers all over the table. And that's how I got started. I was pretty good for 130 pounds until I walked into the Michigan State Championships and pulled Alan Burgett the year that he won the WAF Worlds.
Wow.
And Alan he had this Gilligan hat on. I still got pictures. I think it's out on my Facebook page. Right, Alan's got that Gilligan hat on, and I was just like, "What is this?" But he just crushed me. Right, I was just like, "Holy cow!" So that was my whole introduction to the next level. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, 1993. Jeez.
Yeah. Yep.
I was 9 years old,
Yeah.
but that's okay. I mean, I
It's
only
been
have two
around.
in right now, but at some point I'll have 30 years also.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, how old were you in '93? Like, were you around like maybe like
19,
17, 18?
19. Yeah.
Okay, 19. Man, I wish I got started at 19. That'd have been.
That's exactly for me, what it was, right? It was being able to start so early. And
Yeah.
as long as you can stay relatively injury free, right? You can compete forever, right? I've unfortunately I've torn this one, I've torn this one, I've torn this one. So I haven't been injury free, but it's still fun, right? And it's still
Mike Brown, as I was born in '93.
who was that?
Mike Brown.
Yeah.
That's hilarious, Mike.
Yeah. So
That,
it's been a good ride for sure.
oh yeah, I can imagine. I
The
can imagine.
people you meet in the sport are just phenomenal. Phenomenal, right? Used to train with like Cobra, right? We used to run around together quite a bit. We hit Delaware one year. Him and I drove all the way out there. He beat Jerry Cole, Dave Patton, and Bill Brzink all in the same tournament. Just insane, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, did Cobra have the same technique that the whole
Yeah. Yeah.
explosive hand technique then?
Yeah. He's always had that real strong cup type top roll instead of being all flared out, right? He'd be able to get a nice strong cup in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
He's always kind of pulled that way.
Nice,
And
nice, nice.
back in the day, right? When he was so fast. Just so fast.
Can you kind of go over your beginnings of arm wrestling, like whenever you started training and like how you developed your arm wrestling skills?
Yeah, so when I first started, it was wrist wrestling, right? So it was on a flat table. The whole wrist wrestling thing was like my first tournament until I got
Now,
into.
was that like wrist like this?
No, you still had the same grip, but you
Okay.
were on flat on the table, armed underneath,
Uh,
instead of holding the peg, right?
gotcha, gotcha.
And then we started the few local guys around Kalamazoo area where I'm from started training, pulling every week, and hit whatever tournaments that we could hit. After I finally met Al and Tom Wilson, excuse me, I started traveling down to Southwest Michigan where those guys were at. Started training with those guys on a weekly basis, and then from there, just kept going, right. And back then, there wasn't all the gym technique that's going on nowadays, right? That
Yeah,
stuff all you know very 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 new. So we just what gym time you did was normal type gym stuff back then, and at
gotcha.
least for me, right, it was. And we didn't have the expertise that everybody has now as far as what tools and stuff to use.
Right. So much information out there is so readily available. Yeah, yeah. So Sonny Gay, what did he say? He said, "Age is the best thing about arm wrestling. No matter how young or old, you can compete. Next best thing is all the great friends you make." Oh, 100%.
Yeah, he is a.
Ed, you're rattling off how many people that you've known for 30 years just because of this sport.
Yeah, and it's how I met my wife, right? So
Wow.
uh, she was friends with Tommy Wilson's live-in girlfriend at the time, and she worked with her, and we all went out just before. Heck, it was almost 25 years ago now, and next thing I know, I was packing my stuff up from Kalamazoo and moving to St. Joe, Michigan, which put me closer to Alan and Tom to pull more. So, and when we're going out of state, because back then, right, there was like one tournament in a month, and it could be 12 hours away, it could be 5 hours away.
Jeez.
And most of the time, we were driving out of Michigan to go. So it was getting closer to the border was a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So there just the Michigan states at that point whenever you started in arm wrestling, was that like the only event in Michigan?
Oh no, the Michigan. If you go to our website, right we're the only one that has a website like what we do. So MichiganArms.com, right?
When you first started?
Yeah. So prior to me, and even prior to me was George Dybel, and he was running. I think he started running the Michigan State Championships in 1988. And prior to George, there was a gentleman named Ron Gentry who was running tournaments and stuff on the east side of the state. and then another gentleman that was running a lot of stuff on the west side of the state, and they would kind of work off of each other. And so there's results and stuff on our webpage that go all the way back to the 70s.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. So a few years ago, I had Ron come over to the Michigan State Championships. I had gotten a hold of him on Facebook and stuff, and he come and uh, went up on stage and made a little speech and stuff. So it was really cool. The history for Michigan it means a lot to me, right? And it was awesome. And then a little side note for Ron, right? He actually boxed Muhammad Ali back in the early 80s, late 70s or something.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Was that a formal bout, or was it like just spar?
There's video out on the internet.
How'd he do?
I think he ended up losing. Well, he did end up losing. I don't remember exactly how. I don't know if the video shows the end of the fight that's out there, but
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
I'll have to check that out. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So George, right? George was running tournaments. I mean, there was other people running tournaments. Chad Momber, he was running the Sparta Town and Country Days back then. There was a group up in the St. Ignace UP. Tony LeDuc and Steve Utter. Those guys were doing things up there. And then there was a few guys on the east side of the state that were doing things. But then in '98, I petitioned to become American Armed Sport Association director, right? So the AAA with George, right? So '96 was the first tournament I ever ran. It was in a bowling alley that I had bowled at.
Yeah.
The bowl.
So it only took 3 years to get into promotions.
Yeah, it's just kind of it works.
At that young of an age, he's only 22. I mean, like, what? That's a young age to be promoting and organizing and stuff.
Yeah, my first tournament, there only had like 20 or so guys that showed up. But the next spring, I ran another tournament there at the same place, and I brought Bill Ballinger in to be the guest referee. So that helped drum up some more business and stuff. And then by '98, I had petitioned to be the co-state director. So then George and I were both running tournaments, bouncing ideas off of each other. And, by then, right, the internet was taking off, and that made life so much easier. Right? Oh, much. I mean, there was no Facebook or anything like that, but you had email addresses.
Yeah, for sure.
I threw my mailing list away.
Yeah.
And went with the email.
Did you have one of those old Rolodexes?
No, we had actually 8x10 sheets of paper printed with everybody's address on it. And so,
oh my goodness, wow.
Take the flyer, fold the flyer up like an envelope, and write the address on it, and half turn because people moved or whatever. Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been a ton of work.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of work. Because then you had to update the mailing list and everything, and if you didn't have a computer back then, you're handwriting your mailing list. And
right. Yeah. I can't imagine, man. It's so much work now just organizing events. I cannot imagine you guys having to do that all by hand. That was tough.
Yeah, it was. It was very tough, but it was satisfying, right? And being able to put on events and start building something that I love to do. Like I said, right? I met my wife through it, right? It probably out of jail when I was in my 20s, right? So it just gave me something to do, right? So it'd be training, right? We'd pull on the weekends that we weren't going somewhere. Alan and Tom and I would jump in the car. I mean, '96, we went to We went to Cleveland, Yukon Jacks. I pulled Dave Patton that day.
Wow.
35 pounds soaking wet at the time, but it was just like you knew who Dave Patton was because you saw him on ESPN, right? Everybody knew who he was.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we went to let's see, I can't. What was it? 95 Yukon Jacks. We're in Chicago. We'd pile in the car and head over there. Yeah, we would spend every weekend. There was one weekend, myself and a gentleman named Wade Mullahan from Michigan jumped in the car on Friday night, drove all the way to Baraboo, Wisconsin, just to pull a tournament. Drove home Saturday after it was over.
Wow. Good
Yeah.
thing you didn't have to cut weight for that.
No, I didn't.
Exactly. That. Oh my goodness. I cannot imagine that. How many hours drive was that?
To Baraboo from basically Kalamazoo, it had to have been about 7 hours.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
It's a long drive just for a tournament. I tell
Yep.
you.
Yep.
That's
Drive to Iowa. Davenport, Iowa used to put on a few tournaments. We used to head out there.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Been
That's
all
you had people to do that with. That's really awesome.
yeah, and splitting the rides, half of it, right? But back then, gas was cheap, $1.20 a gallon back then. We all had small cars and stuff, weren't running around in big trucks and stuff, so got pretty good gas mileage.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
You know.
Yeah. Juan Ortega says in the chat, he said, Bob Sutton speaks very highly of you, Steve.
Thank you. I appreciate Bob, right? Bob does a lot of good for the sport, right? He's been around way longer than I have, right? And he's got some stories if you want to get Bob on because he used to live with Dave Randall down in Georgia.
Oh man.
Yeah. So Bob's a good guy, and I appreciate anything that he says about me.
Yeah, I got to meet him at Juan's event in Bowling Green.
Yeah.
Yeah. Josh Batchelor's here. He says, "Yo." So since so 98 you started into starting directing tournaments and stuff, right? And we said 98.
96 was like my first one, and then 98 is when I kind of became co-director for Michigan with George.
So that was the big start of everything. Like
Yeah. So we had
what made you want to start into that? Like it was just to build the community, or was it like
I was
you
just
know
so into the sport, right? Just so into it. It had given me so much that I had to give back, right? And so anything that I could do to help progress the sport, right? The first year I went and refereed the nationals, nobody asked me, right? I sent Frank and Karen a message and said, "Hey, I want to come referee at nationals," and they said, "What are you, crazy?"
yeah.
And that was in Louisiana with Craig and Robert Redding and all those guys down there. And I flew down there, and that was the first nationals I refed in '99.
Jeez.
Yeah,
That's sweet. That's really cool.
it was just for me it is just always trying to build and uh, make the sport more visible.
That's good. I'm glad I know many people appreciate what you've done for the sport. I guarantee you that.
Thank you, thank you.
Now, do you have any specific like philosophy that you go by when it comes to your events that you're putting on? Uh, like even just like now compared to what you used to, is there any like certain ways that you like having your events run and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I try to stick to a formula, right? But the number one thing that I've always tried to do is learn from the last one. What didn't go right and what went right, right? So that's the kind of same thing I do at work on a daily basis, right? So like last year for Michigan State, we were so big, the lines were so long, right? So we're fixing that, right? We're bringing in an additional scale. We're going to have these guys weigh in over here, these guys weigh in over here, and we're going to
Yeah.
have two people doing registration. And so we should drastically cut down on those lines at weigh-ins, right? So that's my philosophy was always to make it better. What went wrong? Can we do to make it better? Right. Obviously, you're not always going to make everybody happy, but if you can make the majority of the people happy, then you're doing fairly well.
I like that idea of having certain people or certain classes. Maybe you have your amateur class over here and your pro class over here. You know, just
Yeah.
split that
It'll,
way. You know where everybody's at and whatnot.
yeah. It'll probably be by weight classes. So every weight class
Okay,
will be on the same scale.
gotcha.
So that way there's no, well, he weighed in on this scale and I weighed in on that scale and that scale's lighter than that scale. And so we
Great.
tried to eliminate all of that.
That's
And
good thinking there for sure.
yeah, and a lot of this is not just me, right? It's the whole team that I use to run the tournament, right? So this technically was Karen's idea, right? So Karen said, "Hey, we can get access, right? Al's got the same exact scale that Frank and Karen have. Uh, let's build two weigh-in booths and add another registration person, which adding another person to the staff of the tournament is
Yeah.
a little mind-boggling because you're running when we're running 4 tables. I try to have 10 referees and 3 or 4 scorekeepers, and yeah, it's an undertaking for the size of that tournament.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that because last year, whenever I went to your tournament, Michigan State's, that was my first ever uh, big Michigan. Like that was my first ever being at your event, and then that was obviously the biggest event I had ever been to. Like holy moly!
Yeah, it's we've been very fortunate, right? So things just have lined up, right? And we put a lot of work into it. Everybody involved, right? All the sponsors that I received last year, all the sponsors from the years before, right? It was just to put all the work into it. So last year with the pay per view and stuff, it was a lot of extra work, right? So it went off great, right? We didn't have any major glitches like in the broadcasting of it and things. So Alex did a tremendous job with all the stuff that he was working on to make sure that we didn't have any issues there. We did have one camera that got a little funky when it went in one direction, but from the product that was being put out before us, we were very, very, very happy with what was there.
That's great. That's really good. Um, let's check out the chat. Kevin Palco said, "Great idea." I'm assuming he's talking about the weigh-ins. Tracy Hayer's here. What's up, Tracy? Joel Hudick, he says, "Just send a couple gorillas now. Save a lot of time."
Joel and Dan were so Joel and Dan Blanchard were on a race to see who would have the most gorillas, right? And so they both have a handful of them or a couple of hands full of them themselves. However, there's a new gentleman that is about trying to take over whoever had the most gorillas, right? So Pablo has been coming the last few years and double classing and just racking up. I think there's a picture on Facebook from last year, got a table full of golden gorillas. Right?
Sorry, I had something pop up. Yeah, I think it was like 4 or 6 gorillas he had, plus the 2 masters. I
Yeah.
was like, oh man.
Yeah. So Joel might want to go ahead and come so we can try to stay ahead.
Yeah. Tracy says, "Good job on the belt win, Joel." Joel said, "Thanks, Tracy." Yeah, Joel just had a nice win against Cody Smith at BAL3 in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
He did a great job there.
Joel's got a couple of my belts that I have out there. And, we passed the belts around for a little while, and it's a lot of work. So whoever's doing belts these days, hats off to them, because that's a lot of work.
Oh yeah,
Especially with all the rankings and stuff now that are taking place. Somebody's got to do that work, and then you have to try to set up the matches with the belts and stuff on top of all the work that's being done there. So those guys that are doing that stuff are definitely hats off to them.
oh yeah, for sure. So your philosophy when it comes to your events, we talked about that. Learning from not necessarily mistakes, but just learning from the previous years, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I had my first event, my first big event in November, and right, like you said, you learn from what happens there, and that is a great idea with the weigh-ins and stuff. Mine, I think, I'm obviously not gonna be big enough to where I need two weigh-in lines, but I think mine was just having a formal line of for weigh-ins instead of just of everybody kind of just bunched up around the table.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I definitely learned from my from my event.
Yeah. I mean, you have formality to it, right? And it gives you professionalism. It looks better, right? Because yeah, we've all been there, right? I ran a tournament one time. Uh, Dates are very important, right? Don't run a arm wrestling tournament on Easter weekend, because I had 11 people show up, and it completely brain farted on me that it was Easter weekend. And so the things like that, right? You have to pay attention to. And I try to have the rule, right. Michigan State last year, I had chosen a date. People had stacked on top of me, or there were already tournaments that I wasn't aware of that were on those dates. I moved the tournament 3 different times,
Wow.
so I wasn't stacked on somebody else's tournament. And I
Yeah.
finally settled with the early April date and went with it. And not 6 months after I set my date, people were stacking tournaments on it. Right? And so,
Gee.
I mean, it just continues to happen. I try not to do it. There's one tournament that I have that conflicts here in Lexington, the Kentucky State Championship, that conflicts with West Virginia. I've talked to the organizer of that tournament as well. But I'm tied in. The tournaments I do here in Kentucky are all with the NPC bodybuilding shows,
Hmm.
and so I'm tied into whatever weekend that they do, and it's really unfortunate that we're on the same weekend. If I could do anything, I would, but it's a tough.
Yeah, at Arnold's.
I'm sorry.
Are you going to be at Arnold's this year?
Nope. On the fourth, uh, I was qualified to go, because I went and pulled the Kentucky Muscle Tournament in the Masters class and qualified to go to the Arnold. Um, I refed the Arnold way back when it first started and stuff. I've never pulled in it, so there was some. I thought about it for a little bit, but I'm not competitive, right? There's just no way. It would be cool, but the Arnold is obviously it's a high level tournament, and everything that's around the Arnold is very very high class, and just the amount of people that are there
Yeah.
in convention is just crazy, right? So
I'm looking forward to that one for sure.
I tell anybody in the sport that you have to try to go at least once.
Yeah,
And
I've never been to an Arnold Sports Festival to begin with ever.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
fun.
so I'm really looking forward to to go into that and seeing all that high level pulling.
Yeah, it's a great event.
So, speaking of Michigan State, like we were just talking about, I'm assuming but as far as I'm aware, I mean, Michigan State is literally right now the pinnacle of tournaments that I can think of in the country. How did Michigan State's become the pinnacle of arm wrestling tournaments?
So in 2010, I had just moved from St. Joe Benton Harbor area over to the Flint area. Or actually, I took a job in Auburn Hills. I hadn't even moved yet. And George had started his upholstery business where he was going to be on the road a lot. So George came to me and he said, "Here, it's yours." Right. Well, 2010, I was too busy with my new job and stuff. So there wasn't a Michigan State Championships in 2010. So in 2011, we were moved and everything, and I had found there was a bar around the corner from where I lived. Scott Parker, who is a former Harley flat track champion, owned
Wow.
the bar, and he was obviously looking for things for Saturday afternoons for his bar, right? So we talked with him, and he became a great host. We were doing tournaments with him a couple times a year, and I said, "Well, I need to make a Michigan State Championships happen." So we ended up making the Michigan State Championships happen there in 2011, and it was a small tournament, right? It wasn't very big. It definitely wasn't even as big as the last tournament that Michigan State that George had ran. Um, but then 2012, I got a phone call from Wings Stadium, right? So Wings Stadium in Kalamazoo. I actually worked there when I was in high school, and so they owned a smaller ice arena that had a bar attached to it. And I said, let's go talk to these guys, right? We'll see if there's any way that we can. So it was exciting for me because I was going back to my hometown with a tournament. Excuse me. Going back to my hometown with it for a tournament. And, you know, kind of just the atmosphere of an ice arena and everything, a big venue type,
Yeah.
right? So uh, we put a bunch of money into awards that year. Really nice, tall cups, and really put a lot of work into it. So we did that. That was 2012, and then 2013. Um, I had the Louisiana guys came up, Craig Toulier, and all those guys from down in Louisiana came up, and it happened to be snowing that weekend when they came up. And it was early April, and it wasn't snowing really bad, but all those guys were going crazy about the snow and stuff. It was kind of cool, and so the tournament itself started getting traction, and I had refed all the nationals and stuff, so I knew a lot of people in the sport. And
Yeah.
so as people are seeing that I'm pushing this tournament, Facebook is coming along, right? I'm able to push with Facebook more than even what we were doing before. And so 2014, we bought some belts, right? Had some guys. It was Josh Hanlon and Scott Hazelwood pulled for a belt that year, and then 20. That was 20. No, that was probably 2013 when that happened. Anyways, and then the next year, 2015, is when Gorillas came out, and when the Gorillas came out, it just there was nobody doing anything like it, right?
Yeah.
Nobody, right? And so I think the next question maybe is where the gorillas.
That's exactly what my next question was going to be. Where did that idea come from for that? Like where did it all start? Like, did you guys just like go through some different animals or something, or just like brainstorm or something?
So the gorilla thing was a thing before I started running Michigan State. Right? So 2004 or so, Alan, myself, Tom, we were looking. We had Southwest Michigan team, right? We had a couple shirts made up, and we were looking for new shirts and new ideas, and we had this joke thing running around practice SHP, right? So if you see any of the originals, and it's on my Facebook page, any of the original gorilla shirts said SHP on them, right? So we had this thing in practice, SHP, and we were throwing that stuff around. And so also we're like, okay, so that's going to be the name of our new team, right? SHP. So then Alan and I go to his wife's cousin had a t-shirt shop, right? So we're gonna go get new shirts made. We're flipping through these books, flipping through these books, flipping through these books. What goes with SHP? And you're probably asking, what is SHP, right? So SHP is superior hand power, right? So when you can
Yep.
exploding hand,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Right? Superior hand power. So, what has a strong grip, right? So, we were flipping through these books, and that picture of that gorilla popped up, and I went, that's it.
Oh,
That is it right there, right? So, we got those shirts made up, and we made those up for, I think it was the 2004 Michigan State Championships, which were over in Brooklyn, Michigan, by the racetrack. And that's where the gorilla started. So it was our own thing, right? We had a group, Bull Huber, uh, myself, Alan, Tom, Eric. We had a group that trained together on a regular basis, and then we started branching out and picking up, Matt Borden, Jeremy Boyd. There was Philip and Vern Lang. So we just started picking up more and more of these guys, and there's several of these guys that have these original shirts out there. And I actually wore mine at Michigan State last year when I pulled in the master's class.
okay.
Won one, lost two. So
That's exactly how I ended up. It's okay.
so that's how it all started. And then 2012, the national championships, AAA national championships, were in Indianapolis, and we were taking a huge team. We ended up with enough down there for two teams. So we actually, at the national championships that year, we took first and third place in the points.
Awesome.
Yeah, but so we were trying to put T-shirts and stuff together for the national championships, and somebody posed the question. Dan Bennett, I believe it was, posed the question: can we make the gorilla Team Michigan? Right. And at first, I was really, really, really reserved about doing it. Right.
Yeah, you guys built that up yourselves, you know.
It was my baby. Right.
Yeah.
And so I was really reserved about doing it, but I went ahead and we did it. And then each individual team had their like name, and not logo necessarily, but their name on the front, right?
Yeah.
So to kind of so we had changed the SHP from the back to Team Michigan on those shirts, and from that point it was okay. The grill is more about Michigan in a whole than just SHP.
Yeah.
So then in 2015, George was working out east a lot with his company, and where you can get the sculptured arms. He swings in there one day and says, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you make me a mold of this shirt?" Right. So they made a 3D model of it. Took the picture from our shirt and made a 3D model of it. And George sent me the pictures and stuff, and we ran with it from there for Michigan State. So 2015 was the first year that we gave those away at Michigan State.
Now, is that the same mold that what you guys have now? Is that the original mold right there?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. You guys got it on the first crack.
Yeah. And, there's been copies, right? So WAL called me one year, right? So I was reffing for WAL and stuff and running for them. They called me up and said, "Hey, who's your guy?" I was like, gave it to them. A couple days later, they called me back and sent me the design, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, but this kind of seems like this is the guy's go-to. Do you mind?" And I was like, it is what it is. Go
Hmm.
ahead. Who am I to tell you no, right? And so uh, WAL had their alligator for Louisiana done up. That was just like ours. And then they also had a bear done up for California that was just like ours. Right? And then from there, right, more and more people. I've had people from overseas call me, want me to ship them gorillas for not even competing.
Oh man.
I can't do that, right? I've had people ask me to use gorillas in their tournaments, and I hate to be that guy, but that's
You guys worked so hard for that.
yeah, that's what makes Michigan State special, right? Is that gorilla, and it started this whole trend of these kind of sculptures and stuff. Yeah,
We're gonna attempt. I don't know, if it's ever gonna happen or not, but
yeah,
that's the kind of goal is to have something, similar to that to give out at our events. You know,
cool,
it
right?
worked great for you, and you throw the biggest tournament of the year. You know, if we can learn something from what you know what we go to, and what we can try to support you guys, and then we can learn stuff from you guys. So that's
Yeah,
one thing we're gonna attempt to do is try to get something similar to that. We'll
well,
see.
if you need any connections, I'll we can talk later, right? I can give you my guy. So,
Yeah, I heard that the the initial die making process of those are super expensive, is what I heard.
yeah. Right? So all of it is right. So I even the medals, right? The medals that we have has the Michigan Arm logo, excuse me, in the medal, and then it also has the gorilla and everything in that, right? And it's all color. It's
Yeah,
thick, 3-inch round, right? And those things are phenomenal. But just the die for that alone for that one was $300. So you can only imagine what the gorilla was, right?
oh, I can imagine. Yeah, I think somebody told me in the thousands, just for the die, to make something like that. And it's understandable. I mean, if you're gonna make, who knows how many, molds from it,
Yeah,
it should be worth it.
yeah. And so the gorilla, right? It's 12 inches tall.
Exactly.
We don't downsize for first, second, and third place, right? They're all 12 inches tall, roughly 15 pounds, right? some once in a while I'll grab off the table and, oh, that one's lighter than the one previous, right?
Now, what
So
are the gorillas made of?
it's plaster.
Plaster. Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty fragile if they get dropped or anything. Don't
Got.
leave it aside.
Are they solid plaster?
Yeah.
So you guys just are now. Who makes the gorillas? Is that company, or do you guys do it yourselves?
No, it's the company.
Okay, gotcha,
Yep.
gotcha.
So
Yeah, I was just curious if you guys like had them send you like a set of molds, like set of 6 molds, and then you guys are over there dumping plaster into these molds for like a weekend or something.
that's a possibility, right? So uh, something that we've talked about and looked at, right, to try to make things a little bit cheaper, but then we're adding additional molds and things, right? So
Right, right, right.
because last year I took 150% price increase on the gorillas from when
Cool.
we originally started ordering them in 2015, right? So
Wow.
just else has gone up, right? Those have gone up, and
Yeah,
George doesn't work out east anymore, so we're paying for shipping now. So
it's like a pallet. You getting a
it,
of them
actually,
suckers probably too,
last year I had them shipped directly to Kellogg, and it was three.
and there's $1,000 just to ship it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they five or 600
Wow.
to yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if it was over 1,000 upcoming.
yeah,
Because the way everything's going right now, I tell you.
yeah. And at that point, I got a 7x16 trailer in my yard
Yeah.
that I put the bike in. I'm heading to to go pick them up at that point.
Yeah. That yeah, I can understand that for
Or
sure.
got some truck driving buddies, maybe Mike Gould or Steve Southworth or somebody that could pick them up for me.
Hey, if you guys are on your way.
Yeah.
so so let's kind of move on. So as far as events, my next question was: do you have any specific aspirations for your future events? Like, is there anything that you really want to do, or anywhere where you want to take your events? Like, is it? Do you have any aspirations as far as your events go?
I can't really answer. That's a very good question, right? I can't really answer that question without letting the cat out of the bag. But yes, there's there's a lot of aspiration, right? So I always wanted Michigan State to be that pinnacle tournament, right?
Oh, definitely. You're already there for sure.
Do that, right? Right? You grow and grow and grow, right? Like so, a couple years ago, right? I had this always, right? I want to give away a Harley, right? I always wanted to give away a Harley. So, 2019, I went and I bought a Harley to give away. It sat in my garage for 2 years
Yeah. Yeah.
because we got
Right.
screwed in 2020, right?
Yep.
So, and 2021 was still a little iffy. So numbers weren't as great as I had expected for 2021. We were only 300 and something for 2021.
Yeah.
Uh, with being 400 plus in 2019. But it was great. Giving that Harley away, just seeing the look on Brad's face when that thing turned on, right? It was just phenomenal, right? Phenomenal, right? Just like myself, I couldn't get over it, right? It was very, very cool. There's video out there of it, and it was just
Who ended up winning that?
Brad Paddock from Michigan.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, and the way I did it was a little bit unique, right? There'd been Harley pulls in the past, right? And I had been part of some in the past. I refed Harley pull and stuff, and been part of those that Mike was doing way back in the day. Uh, but I wanted to do something a little different than what people had done in the past. So I gave a raffle ticket to everybody that entered the tournament. Anybody that entered the pro class,
Gotcha.
I don't typically use pro as a term. I try to use open because nobody's making any money on that, right? Nobody's living to be a professional, right? So open class, right? So uh, I had the open classes. Everybody got a raffle ticket. So everybody that entered that, and I was taking a huge risk because if that person would have won that bike that didn't win their class, I probably would have got a little bit of backlash on, right? But I took that risk. I wanted to do it. Everybody that entered the tournament had one chance to win that bike, right? So I took all the raffle tickets. I drew one number. That person got a key, right? So there was one person that already had a key just for showing up to the tournament.
Yeah.
And then everybody that won their weight class in the masters or the open classes got a key. And then we went through and drew numbers on who was going to come up and be able to. So just double random, right? So
Right.
you draw numbers to see what envelope you were in line to draw an envelope, right? So then once we got that whole line done, then we get in line and we start drawing keys, and it's no key, no key. I mean, the key's not working. Key's not working.
Oh boy.
We're like 15 people deep, and I'm going, oh man, I wasn't expecting it to go this far.
Yeah.
And Brad come in there and he opened it up and he stuck his key in there and the lights popped on and the whole place, it's that pop, right? If ever professional wrestling, they
Oh
talk
yeah. Yeah.
the pop of the stadium, right? And it just boom, everybody went crazy. It was really, really cool. So there's some aspiration there to do something a little bit bigger. I've talked to a few people about it, right? And there's a kitty that started, and we'll see what happens.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's another great idea. I mean, like, I want to put on good events, and I'm obviously not going to steal your ideas or anything, but coming up with unique ideas like this is how you get people to come to your events. It's great ideas.
It definitely isn't my idea. You're not stealing my idea. There was people that gave away Mike Bowling, right? He gave away Harleys. Tennessee guys gave away a Harley a few years ago. I think there was even somebody down in down south somewhere that gave one away a few years ago as well. So it's definitely not stealing my idea. I stole somebody else's idea and just tried
Yeah.
to improve upon it by giving everybody a ticket, right?
Right. That's really cool, and I'm glad you did that. That's awesome. Let's check out the chat for a minute and see if we can get caught up on that. Let's see. The Drew 24. He's here. He is my moderator. He said, Artem, Top Row has been streaming live for about an hour now, too. Some of us are over there. Hey, that's cool. Adam, that one guy, that's Adam now. He said, what up, Billy and Steve? What's up, chat? What's up, Adam? The Drew says, Adam, howdy. I will be kind of away for now. Shower, etc. Don't go too crazy, chat. I don't think they're going to go crazy. The chat hasn't been wowed for a little while. Adam says, smash the like button. Yeah, if anybody can just exit the chat and hit the like button, that'd really help us out. If you're not subscribed to the channel, I'd really appreciate you hit the subscribe button too. We're just trying to grow the sport, just as Steve did, in the 90s. We're doing it now, so we're just trying to grow the sport in our area as everyone else is. Let's see, Lawrence Bell's here. How you doing, bud? Mike Brown, what made you create a new lightweight class for the tournament?
So the 143 class.
I think that's what he's talking about.
And so a few years ago, so back in the 90s, right? We used to alternate. One year we would do like the 132 and the 143, and then Michigan has always had a few good lightweight guys, right? So, like I said, Alan Burgett went and won the WAF World Championships at 121 pounds in '93. Before him, it was George Dybel. He was pulling at 121 pounds. Um, there was at 132 pounds. There was Randy Witten, right? So we've always had a few lightweight guys that were really good. So we always back then we tried to have those smaller classes or lighter classes. Myself, I had dieted down and pulled 121 pounds. And my first nationals was 1995 out in Pocatello, Idaho. I found the flyer at a tournament in Chicago and said, I'm driving out to Pocatello, Idaho. And so we packed up the car, myself, Rick Bovin, and Randy Britton packed up the car and drove all the way to Pocatello, Idaho. I took fourth place in 121 pounds. I had a Benji Dreyer who took fifth that year. And then in 96, I pulled 121s. I think I took fourth again that year. And then 97, I had moved up to 32s. And then Tom Wilson had dropped to 21s. He was pulling 32s and stuff. So he had dropped after I moved up. Tom dropped to 21s. He actually won the Nationals in 98 at 121 pounds. And then even after that, Matt Borden come along. He had been pulling with us quite a bit. And Matt's always been very natural arm wrestler and naturally a smaller guy. And so he started, I think at one point the weight classes had changed and it was like 125 or so. So Matt was pulling that. And I think after Matt, we really haven't had anybody that small, that light. Uh, so it was just those classes kind of have always stuck with me, right? You know,
Yeah.
the heavyweights, and to get back to the question, sorry, to get back to the question, the heavyweights and the stuff have always gotten the limelight and stuff. And a couple years ago, somebody said, "Hey, what do we got to do to have a 143 class?" I threw it out on Facebook and said, who wants a 143 class? Is there enough there? And I got a sponsor to kick in for the right-handed, and and that's that going to the sponsor kicking in for the right-handed. I went ahead and made the left-handed and covered the awards for myself for the left-handed, because when I started, there was no left-handed for anybody that light. Right, the only place you could pull it was the World Championships, WAL World Championships. Was the only place you could really pull that light and have guys to pull with. Most like the Nationals, the first year I went to the Nationals in '95, I think the weight class was either 154 or 165, and so I never trained left-handed, and so my left hand is by far way worse than my right.
Yeah, same as mine. Yeah.
In the 2000s and stuff, that stuff started to change. Most people were running in the early 2000s, running both. So there was enough interest to have the 143 class. So I ran with it, and it's actually been a very, very deep class every year. 10, 15 guys in that class. So
Yeah.
That's one thing that's great about the Michigan State Championships, right? If you like to pull deep classes and win more than 3 or 4 matches to win the tournament,
Yeah.
State's where to be, right? There's 20, 30 guys in almost every single weight class.
Yeah.
that's where we were at with adding the 143.
Gotcha. I know that bullpen for my class was full.
Yeah.
There's 25, 30 guys down there. I was like, oh man.
Yeah. And it's nice to be able to pull that much, right? And
well, I only got to pull 3 times,
but as long as you stay in the winner's bracket and keep going.
Right.
Whereas,
well, hopefully I might be able to do something different this year. I made a big mistake and thought, oh, maybe I'll just go up there and I won't cut or anything. I tried to pull 220 amateurs, and I was only like 215 pounds, and just didn't think, oh yeah, there's 245-pound guys that are going to cut down to 220, for this class. I'm just thinking, oh no, and then yeah, I got my tail handed to me, so I didn't even mess with the 198s. I cut down all the way to 176s.
yeah.
So
Nice.
that's what I'm pulling now. So
Nice.
yeah. So let's clean up the chat here real quick. I think everybody's just talking between themselves. Lawrence, Lawrence Bell. He goes, I love that everyone should have lightweight classes. He's like 125 pounds. Lawrence
Yeah.
is very strong.
Nice.
He's a newer puller. He'll get up there though. But yeah, I've met quite a few lightweight guys right around that, a little over 100, 130 pounds, and
Yeah.
they're fighting. Fast and exciting guys to
Yeah.
watch.
Put on good matches. Sure.
Adam also said I was interested in 143 last year. Can't get close since I quit cigarettes. Just drink more coffee and water. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I've done for the last 6 months is just coffee and water and less calories. So how about sponsors? We just talked about sponsors. How do you go about getting your sponsors? Is there like do your sponsors come to you? Do you have to go chase sponsors? Like, how does that work for you, Steve?
So one of the good things that for me, right, is so like last year, we're in front of over 120,000 views on YouTube, right? And that's just on the Michigan Arms YouTube page, which isn't even at 1,000 subscribers. So
Right.
and George runs the YouTube page, right? And so he didn't get any monetary benefit from that at all, right? And which is kind of sad for him. He's okay with it, right? I tried to get him to 1,000 before the tournament, but it just no people don't necessarily, our Facebook page has over 3,000 people on it, but getting them to go over to YouTube and like that page is a little difficult. So for me, fortunately, I have that selling aspect of we're the largest tournament in the country,
Yeah.
right? Uh, we have I'm able to use that and sell, but a lot of it is uh, cold calls, right? So, and then a lot of it is arm wrestlers, right? So, all catalytic converter, who was our sponsor for years. Tim and his family supported us tremendously, and they went in and Tim's an arm wrestler, right? So they supported SOS Sports uh, Orthopedic Surgeons. Doc Joe is a former arm wrestler, right?
Awesome.
They continue to support, right? So that's one avenue, right? Is arm wrestlers supporting arm wrestlers, right?
Yeah.
So that was good, and then uh, the rest of them are basically people that know people. Excuse me, cold calling, right?
Yeah.
Cold,
It sounds like it's all about building those relationships.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
And what it sounds like is like you built those relationships in the past, and then they just have worked out through the years, and that's the
Yep.
reason why I asked that. I'm gonna start my uh, relationship building as far as sponsorships here very very soon, and I wanted to get your insights on um, how to go about doing that, and I want to try to build some sponsorships that are long lasting.
Mm.
That we could build together. You know,
Yep.
as East Ohio Arm Wrestling grows, I'd love to see a younger business or a younger corporation or something. I'd love to see them grow with us. That would be really really awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Right. And one of the things that uh, one of the sponsors that had actually gotten into sponsoring quite a few events in the sport is the chalk, Primo Chalk, right? So um, we had a conversation in, I think it was the end of 2020. I mean, maybe even sometime during 2020. I sent them a message because I had used their chalk at a practice that I went to. Aaron Duncan and Storm Stapleton had a practice that I had went to, and they had a bucket of the Primo chalk, and the stuff was
Yeah,
phenomenal.
it's primo for
Yeah,
sure. It's good stuff.
yeah. So I hit them up and I was like, hey, uh, I host this tournament. Would you like to be a sponsor of it? And they sent me a couple buckets, and then I used that at Kentucky State and then Michigan State. I try to take a picture of the stage and everything every time, to try to put that information out there.
Yeah.
Right. It's great chalk. And then as we were setting up the pay per view stuff last year, we went back to them, and they were even kind enough to come on board as a monetary sponsor for uh,
Great.
one, the Chance and Todd match from last year.
Uh,
So yeah, they've been and they've branched out. Right, they're actually I think Texas is doing a lot with them now. I believe they're even based in Texas, so uh, definitely support them because they are supporting more than just me. Right, they're
yeah,
supporting the sport and multiple people in the sport.
yeah, I'll have to reach out to them. Our our big event, I do believe it's going to be in the third week of November. I do believe.
Yeah,
So I'll try to reach out to them. Maybe we can get together on that.
good.
See here. Let's check out the chat. Lawrence is 143 is around my natural body weight. So hey, Lawrence, if you feel up to it, man, 143 up in Michigan State's.
June
Mike
3rd.
Bra- Yep, June 3rd. Mike Brown said I thought about going 154. Being a truck driver and loving food, I guess I'll stick with 176. Yeah, yeah, that's probably smart. But yeah. So anyway, well, I appreciate you telling me about the sponsorships. I really do.
No, no worries, right? Again, right? Anything that I can do to help motivate and help the sport along.
Yeah, for sure.
Always, always, my door is always open. Right? And I don't have all the answers. I've been lucky, right? And I got a great support staff behind me that helps me out as well, right? And
Awesome.
so it's if I can help somebody, right? And if I can, as far as having an avenue for some people that may be at risk of whatever in their lives, and if arm wrestling can help them out, I'm definitely more than happy that I was able to help them. Right.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, let's kind of change gears a little bit. As far as you yourself and your arm wrestling, do you have any specific goals for yourself? as far as your arm wrestling on the table?
My competitive days are, over, right? It's just all about having fun for me. I'll go pull a tournament if I can, right? I've been trying to get to Illinois State for several years now because that tournament is doing very, very well, and it's an up and coming tournament to watch out for because they're right on my heels, right? I've been trying to get there the last couple of years. I thought this was going to be the year, but I have another event that I have to attend that evening. Um, so I'm not, unfortunately, I'm not going to make it again this year. But it's just fun for me, right? I don't care if I lose, right? Obviously, when I get on the table, I want to pull and I want to win. But if I lose, I've been in this sport for 30 years, and I've been in at least one tournament every single year for 30 years.
Wow.
So, if I can still get up there and pull and have fun, that's what it's about for me, right? I don't. It doesn't bother me if I lose,
With that at all. Nothing wrong with that at all.
unless I lose on like a shitty call or something.
You want that retribution.
But yeah, for the most
Great.
part, it's all fun right now.
Are you gonna try to get over to any of those East versus West qualifying tournaments or anything? Like you're gonna check out any of those?
Yeah, so Cobra hit me up, and his is I think the first weekend of April in Fort Wayne, and he wants me to ref it.
Cool.
So we're working on some details of that, and maybe up in Fort Wayne for that.
That'll be cool. I was thinking about going to that one if I can make it, but my daughter's birthday is in the early stages of April, so we'll see if it works out as far as her birthday party goes. But I was definitely thinking about riding over for that one because I think it's only like I want to say 6 hours from my house,
Yeah,
6 or 7 hours. I want to say
yeah,
that would be fun just to go and watch. You know what I mean? I don't even have to go to even pull on that one. I would just like to go and watch that
yeah. Yeah, I know. Like I haven't talked to Cobra in a couple days, but he's over in was over in Ireland for that thing going on over there.
one. Oh, okay.
So hopefully, I know he's getting some details from Ingen and stuff to get those things lined up, and he's been working the ground there in Fort Wayne, trying to get everything finalized. So hopefully he'll be making announcements and stuff, and
Uh,
everybody.
anybody in the chat, if you guys have any questions for Steve, we're going to be wrapping it up here pretty soon. So if you guys have any questions for Steve, make sure you post it in the chat, and we'll get those answers asked, those questions asked uh, when we can here. But I did want to ask you about that since you're kind of going to be working with Cobra on this event. Like, is there anything different about the East versus West um, qualifying events? Is there going to be anything different about those events than there would be at any any other Michigan State or any other Illinois State or anything like that? Is there anything different that's going to happen at these qualifying events?
I'm not 100% sure, right? I haven't been into that detail of it. I kind of watched what Florida's been doing, right? So I think they have a good handle on what they're doing down there. What I think in my mind, right, and I'm not 100% positive on this, but in my mind, it's to get a pool, right? Obviously, there's to get a pool, right, and there may be some East versus what these the Florida tournaments going to be a little bit different than the Fort Wayne tournament, right? So there may be some differences between the tournaments, but at least they get that pool of people who've placed well in those tournaments that Ingen can start to pull from to pull over for the East versus West big tournaments.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So
Yeah, I thought I might have misunderstood. I was thinking maybe like all those qualifying events, and then they were going to have all the winners from those categories meet in one other event or something like that. I might have misunderstood. I'm not sure.
it's 100% possible that's the way it is, and I'm not privy to that information. Like I said, I haven't gotten into all that detail of those, so it's possible for sure that may be the case.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm probably was just thinking it or something. I don't know, but Steve, man, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I really do. I get you
Having me.
laying some knowledge on us and giving us your insights on arm wrestling uh, through both eyes. The puller and the tournament director. And
No, oh,
just from the bottom of our heart, the arm wrestling community is thankful that you are who you are, and you put all the effort into the community. We really appreciate it.
thank you. I really appreciate that. And there's one last thing. I can't really give too many details because I don't have it necessarily. I have a match that is very, very intriguing for a lot of people. Locked down, and all I have to do is pull the trigger to make it happen. Uh,
Yeah,
Trying to gather up some sponsorship for that, but it'll be a very good match. It was actually brought to me by one of the pullers, and it's just putting all the dotting the i's and crossing the t's and making it happen. So I was hoping to be able to announce it today on your show, but I just quite haven't got there yet. But it's
it is.
there. And
Now let me ask you this: is it like nationally ranked, or is it like above that? Like which? Oh boy, let's go.
on the same level as where we were at last year.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's really awesome.
yeah.
Well, I look forward to hearing that announcement, Steve. I really am. And luck to you with that. And
Working on a second one with a gentleman from Canada that's looking to pull as well, and I'm trying to get him lined up with somebody as well. But
that's awesome.
yeah, so
It makes it nice you guys living so close to Canada, and they can just pop down here. And
yeah. This gentleman lives way up north Canada, though, right? So last year he drove, I think it was like 12 hours or so for him to get there.
wow,
Yeah,
wow. I had the pleasure of meeting John Terrian at Bowling Green.
yeah,
And, yeah, he's from Canada. Man, that dude's strong. Oh my
yeah,
goodness. Like I was ref and it was him and another person, and after I say stop, and I touched their backs, and John, John's back it was just like it's like
yeah,
a ball of muscle. I was like, holy moly,
yeah, yeah.
ball of muscle. But I use being paid to go overseas to even arm wrestle. It's awesome seeing these guys
Yeah.
get better and better. Because the first time I saw him was at your event last year.
Yeah, yeah, he come in, right, and relatively, I didn't know who he was, right, at the time, and he come in and he took a gold and a silver. So,
Yeah, yeah. It was awesome seeing that.
yeah,
Let's see, what did Tony say? Tony said, "I hear the event in Michigan is a pinnacle event, and may use the win there to consider themselves pro." Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah. If you can walk into the Michigan State and win the open class, right, you just
yeah. Yeah,
you're a good arm wrestler, right? And even the guys that are winning the novice class, right? If you win the Michigan State novice class, you should not be pulling anywhere else as a novice.
no, or that I that's the thing. Like the guys that are pulling the novice class at Michigan State are the guys that are winning classes at local tournaments, that are known to win these local events and stuff, and in the pro class in those local events, you
Yeah.
know.
We try to be very strict on that. So our ruling is that you cannot have placed first place in any arm sport, be it wrist wrestling, arm wrestling, whatever, any arm sport tournament, and then or first place at like a national or state event. And then we also have obviously the tournament director's discretion, right? So,
Right.
um, unfortunately, my last tournament here in Kentucky, I had to pull a guy out of the novice class because he just didn't belong there, right? And I could probably handled it a little bit better than the way that I handled it. But when I see somebody taking advantage of a situation like that and taking advantage of other pullers, it's just not necessarily right. And I made amends, right? I went and apologized to the guy, but I had to pull him out of the class because he was hanging with the open guys, and he come over on the novice table and just was wrecking people. And
Yeah.
I can't have that, right? People can get hurt. Even though when I started, right, like when we talked about it an hour and a half ago, right, there was no novice class. You just jumped to the wolves, and what happened happened.
So Tony also asked, is the novice class there at Michigan State, I'm assuming, considered amateur? Is the open class considered the local pro?
Yeah, so novice amateur to me is just different wording, right? Like I said, we try to limit it to uh, if you've won 3 or more uh, tournaments that you can't pull in that novice class. You have to jump in, right? I,
Tony, you're definitely gonna qualify for the novice class. Don't think that you have to pull the pro open class at Michigan State if you go. Don't worry about that.
I've actually kicked around the idea of adding like a semi-pro uh, class, right? Having the elite level pullers, and then like a semi, and then the novice. But
I mean, that's a lot of awards. You already got a ton of awards already on those tables.
yeah, we're at like 54 gorillas, and then I just added I changed the novice weight classes this year. It used to be 0 to 165. So to make the scale thing work better, I added the 154. So it's 0 to 154, and then 76, 176.
Gotcha.
So I've added a class in all of the novice and masters classes, right and left-handed as well. So
Yeah.
even all that. But yeah, there's even going to be more awards. And the one thing that I do pride myself on too is the gorillas are given to the 2 women's weight classes that we have as well, right? And we give them the same thing with the Harley. When we gave out the Harley, they had the same opportunity to win the Harley as well. I was actually rooting that a woman would have rode the Harley away because that would have been really cool. It'd have been a first, right?
That'd have been fun.
Yeah.
So Tony said, "Phew, that's good. Just some people just use different wording, so I was making sure." Okay, Tony.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Tony can make it up there and get a good experience as far as how big uh, your tournament is, because he just started at my event. My event was his first event. It was like first time on the table, period, and ended up winning first place in the novice category. Tony's really strong hand, very strong gentleman, and I think he would do well.
Yeah, if you have the opportunity to get to the tournament, it's a must for me, right? It'd be I equate the Michigan State championships now
It's
to
one you have to hit, personally.
yeah. So like back in the 90s and stuff, the AAA Nationals was the pinnacle tournament, right? Everybody was going there. That was the tournament to go win. And now, thankfully, with all the hard work that everybody's done, the Michigan State is. I want to believe that's that tournament now. And we try to make it as professional as we possibly can, right? I haven't ran a tournament in a bar since 2018. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I'm not saying that it's where I started, right? And it's a great place to do it, right? And I'm not saying I won't do it again. But right now,
once you get to a certain level,
yeah. So
can't
the
quit.
professionalism of being where we're at, right? When you walk into the Kellogg Arena, 30,000 square feet, 5,000 plus seats, right? 500 people sitting on the floor, looking up at that stage with 4 arm wrestling tables. It's just like, wow. Right? And that's what I try to gear for, right? I want to make it a not necessarily like a spectacle, but I want people to have that memory and remember that tournament, and they could tell their kids or whatever, right? They gotta have that gorilla. Joel has all his gorillas. Everybody has their gorillas sitting on their mantles and stuff, and they could tell their grandkids or their great grandkids or whatever digging those things out of a box when they're moving their grandparents or whatever, and being able, what is this? And they have that memory of being able to have the opportunity to win that trophy. Right? That's what it is, right? That's what.
That's a great point. That's definitely the best way that I can hear you explain it for sure. See, Mike Brown says, "Hope to see you there, Billy. Love to pull you again soon, brother." I will be there, Mike, for sure. I will be there. Tony Sansbury says, "I realize I cannot do every tournament as there are so many, but I plan to make it to Michigan for the for the for that especially." So looks like Tony's going to be at your event. Awesome.
Great. I appreciate it, Tony.
Kara, she says 300 days till my first tournament. Oh, nice, Kara. Hopefully it's my first my next tournament. Hopefully she pulls in that one.
Yeah.
That'll be good. But Mike, if you're still here, are you going to be in Columbus for Arnold's? Let me know in the chat. I'm going to be down there reffing down there at Arnold. So we're gonna hit Zombie Fest the after the event, and hope to see you there. I don't know where that's at yet, but
yeah, I think that's gonna be right in Columbus, obviously, and
yeah,
the bar, and everybody goes and pulls right
this
afterwards.
is my first time going to Arnold, so I just want to make sure I do a good job with Leonard and just make sure that's good to go, and we're good to go. All right, cool, Mike. I'll see you at Zombie Fest, brother. Maybe we'll get to pull again. Mike's in my weight class in Ohio, so
Yeah.
it's nice being able to pull guys on the same list.
Yep.
Nice, but Steve, I appreciate your time. I really do.
No problem. Not at all. Not a problem at all. Just giving back as much as I possibly can.
Yeah. I appreciate everything that you do for the community, and I know everyone in the chat and everyone watching really appreciates you and everything that you do. But I thank you for coming on the podcast. I really do. It was a wonderful conversation, and just want to say thank you so much for being. Is there anything else you want to say to the community before we go?
See you June 3rd.
June 3rd. Awesome. I'll see you there, my friend.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thanks for
joining us for the podcast. I really appreciate everyone's time. Steve, thank you again. And everyone have a wonderful night, and God bless.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
See ya.
Yeah.